I'm a 25-year-old male from Massachusetts, and this story is about my mother. She just simply will not leave me alone. She gets involved in my love life. She gets involved with every single aspect of my life. I mean, she doesn't even want me to move out of the house. Guys, I'm 25, and she won't let me have a girlfriend. I know what you guys are probably thinking, well, why would I even listen to her? I have something very interesting to tell you, and it's why I listen to her. Hey guys, I'm 25 male, and I live with my mother Matilda in Massachusetts, United States. She's extremely overbearing and cautious about everything that happens in my life. She likes to have control over everything. Since my school days, I've never been allowed to do sleepovers, nor could I invite my friends to my house, as Matilda's constant stares would literally freak them out. I don't know who lives in our neighborhood, because Matilda has never allowed me to play with children around the neighborhood. She would tell me how bad of an influence they could have on my life and spoil me. I was never allowed to watch anything on television unless Matilda was watching that with me, and I could not even stay in my room for long unless I was genuinely studying. Even in that situation, I was to keep the door of my room open. Matilda has always taken the initiative to create a study schedule for me. When I started applying to universities, Matilda did not allow me to look for opportunities outside the states of Massachusetts, for that matter. I had to use a common landline to connect with my friends and could only buy a phone for myself when I turned 20. I managed to save money by taking on part-time jobs at various locations, as Matilda never allowed me to stay in one place for more than a couple of months. Fortunately, this rule did not apply to schools. Otherwise, the number of schools in Massachusetts would not have been sufficient. Ever since high school, I was not allowed to make friends with girls or have more friends than Matilda. One could even keep a record for. Matilda has a habit of keeping a list of names and numbers of all her friends since her day as a student, and I obviously get irritated by seeing how she interferes in my life so much and questions my every single choice. I still don't mind it as long as I can do things behind her back. And, I do. I've been in a relationship with Emily since we were both 22, and we decided to marry as we turned 25 this year. I don't know how I'll break this news to Matilda or whether I want to tell her at all. I know it's strange that I call my mom by her name, but she herself has asked me to call her Matilda. I don't know why, and honestly, I don't mind calling her Matilda. I have not seen my father ever since I turned 7, because he left the house and simply never returned. Whenever I asked Matilda, she would give me the same reason that Dad left us for another woman who worked in the same company as Dad, and I don't know reality since it's Matilda's side of the story, all I hear over and over again. Especially on weekends, since that's my off day. Every weekend she repeats herself telling me that she's worried I might leave her like Dad. One day, she acts the way she acts and does things that she does because of that. Her worries are so immaterial, but I don't have the power to tell her that, and she becomes cranky, accusing me of not loving her anymore, and she cries about how she's given birth to such an ungrateful son, who doesn't say, but who obviously thinks that his mother is a control freak. She may be right there, but after all this drama, I have no intention of telling her that. She's been taking care of me and everything else as well, so why would I not listen to her? I don't question her choices, nor do I tell her about all of my choices. This is the most straightforward tactic I could develop in recent years, you know. Inevitably, I chose not to tell Matilda about Emily. Well, I just thought it was a horrible idea. I didn't want her to go to Emily's house and ask her all these, questions and tell her to keep her distance from me or sever connections. I know darn well that Matilda can actually perform this kind of feat because she has done similar things in the past. So, let me go ahead and just narrate the event for you guys. You see, It's kind of funny and scary to me as it resurfaces in my memory. When I was 14, I made friends with a girl whose name I've forgotten. I was excited when I came back home that day. Matilda inquired about the reason to my happiness, and I lied that I got a praise from my homeroom teacher, knowing darn well that Matilda would ask me to cut ties with the girl immediately. I didn't realize that Matilda would come to pick me up the very next day from school, which was unusual since I would go home on the school bus. Well, unaware of Matilda's presence, who was standing across from the school gate, I was holding that girl's hand, and we were laughing as we walked towards the main entrance, where our bus was waiting for us. Matilda saw this and she went home, and I still did not know until later when she scolded me at home about it. The next day, I went to school with Matilda, who just insisted on meeting the homeroom teacher. She created such a ruckus in the principal's office, shouting about what they would do if a girl, who not to mention was 14 as was I, had a bad influence on my life. The principal tried to calm down Matilda, and after a while the principal had to call the girl's mother to the office. It all happened in the morning, so by lunchtime neither I nor the girl could even talk or look at each other. I never dared to make friends with this girl after the incident, but Emily's different. I met Emily at university, and we immediately became good friends. Later, we confessed our love for one another and have been together for the past 3 years. It's all by luck that Emily and I simply got a job at the same company. Now, I'm 25 and want to settle down with Emily. Everything's been going so smoothly that I did not realize that the biggest threat waiting around the corner is Matilda, who, by the way, is equal to all the trouble that we've encountered. Emily does not have a family, and I don't want Matilda to know about Emily before we marry. So, Emily and I got married in a church by ourselves this very morning, and I'm taking her home. I'm riding it after a gap of a few hours, and Lord save us from Matilda, who's gone berserk like a wild lioness. At first she was shocked, but quickly overcame that feeling, and she ran into the kitchen and started throwing things on the floor. She even wept loudly, and started screaming how I did not love her anymore, I've betrayed her trust, yada yada yada. I could not even make good friends without her permission, apparently, so how come I dare to marry someone without telling her? She belittles Emily, just for being gullible and not suitable enough for me. I ask Emily to go into the bedroom upstairs as I try to calm Matilda down. She puts her head on my chest and falls asleep, and I just leave her on the couch as I talk to Emily about how we can plan our honeymoon, which will give Matilda a few days to calm down, and she might also make peace with this new reality. I go to her as she wakes up after an hour of sound sleep. I tell her that Emily and I have planned to go on our honeymoon and we leave tomorrow for a whole week. She doesn't say a word and goes into her room, so I honestly start to worry about her. But now she must understand that she can no longer control me, guys. After an hour, as we're packing, Emily and I hear crying and just run straight into Matilda's room, who's lying on the bed. She claims she's unable to breathe properly and feels uneasy in her chest. I ask Emily to call the doctor, but Matilda says she'll feel better if Emily makes soup for her. Emily goes into the kitchen while I stay with Matilda, and I'm canceling the honeymoon plan as Matilda is ill, and I cannot leave her alone. Matilda forces me to sleep on the floor in her room that night. Fortunately, Emily understands the situation. It's been going on for a few days now. Matilda insists on asking Emily to do the house chores as she is ill, which prevents Emily and I from spending much time together. When we go to the office, even then, Matilda calls many times daily, telling me about her health, which by the way shows no signs of getting better. Well, it seems like something has happened, which is why I'm, guys, just writing this now. This morning, Emily enters my office and tells me someone's abusing her in the comment section of her recent post. I check the username, which is the name of a place in Texas. Well, yes, the account is private with 0 posts and 0 followers. The user has used invectives. It's been going on for a few days, and the user posted a long comment below each post that Emily had posted in the previous week. Emily says that she has no idea what's going on. I don't know how to handle this situation, so I'm asking you guys for any experience with this, as it would be so helpful. What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. So today's story is a mother drama. Oh boy, it looks like OP is over his head. I do have 4 updates, and the final update has a little twist to it. I found it in the last comment section. So, if you're new to the channel, just know, we're so close to hitting 100,000 subscribers, and I couldn't have done it without you guys. So, if you want more daily videos and you like this kind of thing, hit that subscribe button. That way you get daily videos and you help us reach the goal of 100,000 subs. Let's go ahead and jump into update number 1. I wish I could say that everything has been sorted out, but everything has gotten out of hand. For a long time, I thought that someone from the friend circle was just pulling a prank on Emily. This is not something unusual, as friends do these kind of things in the comment section just to tease or simply annoy the other person. However, the abusive words have increased, as also the accusations. The user is accusing Emily of being, quote, an easy woman and a, quote, third wheel. She's accused of destroying a relationship between 2 people whose names aren't mentioned in the comments, and Emily has stopped going to the office as she's taken a few days off because she's embarrassed to face people at work. Only yesterday, one of her colleagues at the office came to me and inquired if everything was well. I asked Emily if she was hiding somewhere from me, and she looked at me with a bit of disappointment, and I held her hands, asking if she knew who the user might be, but she says she has no idea and has never been in love triangle situation before. She dated no one before me, you know. She doesn't have many friends, and I've met them all. All of them are nice people that would never hold grudges against Emily, as nothing occurs to us. I suggest that she just deleted her Instagram account just for a few days, temporarily deactivating it. Things get worse when a user with yet another name, of place from Virginia this time, starts accusing Emily of being a interloper and destroying the harmony of a happy house. She's called an intruder in the comfortable space of 2 people living happily before she arrived in their lives. Now, they don't even talk properly because of Emily. When Emily doesn't respond for days, the user starts calling her these nasty names, and I take things into my own hands, you know. I suggest we should seek the law's assistance to tackle the situation here. It's not a petty trouble that these kind of comments create in our lives, and Emily and I are both stressed about the situation. Honestly, the situation seems a bit scary, and I don't want Emily to be in any trouble. After all, we have taken vows to stand together and participate in one ways or joyous and woes. So I've decided to protect Emily by seeking help from the police. The police tell us that they're unable to track the user down now, and why not Emily and I consult with a lawyer and press charges of defamation against the user. Emily tells me about one of her friends, Susan, who, by the way, is a lawyer working in Massachusetts law firm. I call Susan and we fix a meeting to discuss the next step, and now all Emily and I have to do is wait for the police to find out who the user may be so that we can press charges against that person with the help of Susan. Update number 2. Hey guys, so many things have happened since I last updated you about the situation. There's both good and bad news that I'm going to share with you all in this update. In the last update, I mentioned how we were waiting for the police to find out who might the user be. The user lives in Massachusetts itself, and the address they traced was the address of a graveyard. They haven't found any trace of the user yet, but one thing that is clear is that there's only one user who is neither from Texas nor from Virginia. And well, it's both good and bad news, isn't it? In the same week, we met with Susan at her house, since Emily and Susan are close friends. We sit in the living room as she tells us to make ourselves comfortable, as her parents were gone out for a while, and I just tell Susan about everything that's been happening for a month now. I update her about where the police are regarding finding the user, or shall I say the culprit. She just assures me that one of the police find the culprit for sure, and we can file a case and seek help from the lawyer in punishing the culprit for all the stress and trouble that he or she has brought to our lives. Not to mention our marriage life has not really even begun properly, since we cannot find peace in all this ruckus. After our conversation, I inquired about Susan and her family. She tells us that she lives with her mom and stepfather, and her biological father had died in a car accident when she was 3. Her stepfather married her mother after being in a relationship for a year. Susan was 10 at the time, and she further tells me that her stepfather divorced his ex-wife because of her over-controlling nature. At this point, I was suddenly reminded of Matilda, and all this commotion, I'd completely forgotten about her. I also noticed that she's been peculiarly quiet these past few days. Matilda has stopped bothering me by calling me every single day to my office. She was also healthy, however. She never stopped asking Emily to do house chores, and I would usually help Emily too. As I kept thinking about Matilda, the main door opened, and Susan's parents entered, and I greeted them, but I was stunned to see Dad there. He hasn't changed. He has the same gray eyes as I had, and although he looked old, I could still recognize him after all these years. We had not met for I don't know how many years. After a few years of his departure from Matilda and my life, I'd already lost count. I could not believe my eyes, but to be on the safe side, I asked his name. It was Bob. Well, it was Dad. I told him who I was, and he looked more surprised than I was, and he gave me a tight hug and simply inquired about Matilda. I told him, don't worry, she could not be healthier. I was then reminded of what Matilda had said about his leaving us for a woman. I was hesitant initially, but surely curious, so I went ahead and asked him. Dad said he did not leave us because of an extramarital affair. Oh no. Instead, he left us because he simply could not longer bear Matilda's overbearing and controlling behavior. Instead of behavior, I almost felt like calling it a syndrome. He then inquired to me about what was going on, and I told him everything, and he did not look surprised. Instead, a look of sadness and disappointment enshrouded his face. At first, he was reluctant, but soon he told me about the terrible reason behind his leaving Matilda in the house. He was reminded of how Matilda had done something similar to him. You see, Dad was working at the company where he met his present wife, Anna. They became friends, and he brought her home to meet Matilda so they could become friends too. But Matilda became extremely suspicious and confronted Dad. Dad tried to put some sense into her, but she would not listen. Dad had borne all her petty little tricks to control his life, but things got out of hand a bit when she started calling on Anna in comments on social media and even spreading rumors about her in neighborhoods. This almost cost the friendship between Anna and Dad. He decided to talk this out with Matilda, but she would not listen, so he had no choice but to leave the home. From the day onwards, he never contacted her, but he has been paying child support fees to her. I didn't even know about that. It turned out that I could relate to Father more than I ever could Matilda. Even though the story made me doubt Matilda, I could not help but resist the doubt. It was so because when Matilda had called out on Anna, she did not use a fake account. She used her real ID, which still exists, and I had no reason to have suspicions about Matilda, and I still asked Susan for some advice. She suggested that I should confirm this by looking at Matilda's phone. Now, all I have to do is find the phone alone and check. I'm hoping that my suspicions turn out to be fruitless.
After all, I don't believe that she's capable of doing this to Emily and her own son. But again, it is Matilda that we're talking about, and the woman with detective eyes and freakish control syndrome. Update number 3. I can't help but feel disappointed as I'm writing this update now. I asked Matilda if I could borrow her phone, just to make certain payments since mine wasn't really working too well, and she gave me the phone, and yeah, I checked the Instagram name. And guess what, guys? This whole time it was Matilda. Abusing Emily, accusing her of severing Matilda and my relationship, and I could not believe that my own mother could go to these lengths and just use nasty names for her own daughter-in-law. I was so angry that I immediately lost control and started shouting. I'd never raised my voice at Matilda before, but this time I simply could not help it. How could she do this to us? To her own son? She looked at me with angry eyes and said, how could I marry a woman who's not suitable for me, and behind her back without telling her? Well, this reality was harsh for her to both understand and accept. She said that she could not bear seeing me happy with Emily while she was alone in the house. I pitied her and could have forgiven her too, but on the condition that she apologize to Emily and delete all those comments. She did not agree. I was left with no choice, so I left the house and went to see Susan. Susan told me about how she's connected with this NGO that takes care of old people, and I said Matilda is barely 50. But she advised me to send Matilda there so she might understand how horrible it could be if I truly abandoned her. So, I sent Matilda to this NGO, and in my heart I knew this was the only thing that could happen, but it was only going to be for a couple of days. I didn't tell her. Well, not Matilda, though. She threw a tantrum as she would not go peacefully, and she called Emily a, quote, homewrecker. It was at this point where I could not bear her presence in the house anymore, and I thought everything will be fine once she goes away. I was so wrong about that, though. Matilda did go to the NGO, but she did not stay there longer than 3 days. I thought this experience might teach her something, and Matilda did learn something new, you know. She learned to create a video, act dramatically, and post it online. Later, I started receiving calls from unknown numbers. Some requested me to bring Matilda home, while some shouted at me for being an ungrateful son. Some said that instead of Matilda, I ought to throw Emily out of the house. I could not understand until Emily sent me a video she was tagged in. I looked at it. The speaker's face was blurred, but it was so obvious it was Matilda. She accused her daughter-in-law of manipulating her son and his mind, who threw his mother out of the house, and guys, once again, Matilda did not give me a choice and I had to bring her home. I confronted Matilda for what she's been doing, saying it's wrong, and I told her what she wanted to do as she has succeeded in it. Emily has left me. That's right. She left the house and asked for a divorce, and Matilda was so happy that it was visible, written all across her face. I told her that now I understand why Dad left her, and why she didn't have any relatives or family before Dad or even after him. Her facial features contorted into a mask of fury, and she blurted so many things that almost made my ears bleed. She said that she never wanted me to marry as I am her only son. She wants to keep me for life. And it's inevitable for her to get angry and do nasty things to Emily because she wants Emily out of our lives completely. Well, to my shock, Matilda also admitted that she pretended to be ill so she could stop me and Emily from going on our honeymoon. She made Emily do the house chores so that I could not spend sweet time with my wife. It angers her to see Emily and me going to the office together, which reminds her of how Dad had also an affair with his co-worker. Although it's Matilda's plain tyranny and suspicion that severed her relationship with Dad, but she still can't see it, guys. Not because she's blind, but because she simply wants to tame everybody. She cries about how scared she is that I might leave her as Dad did, but honestly, Matilda never gave a darn about Dad leaving us. No. Rather, she was happy with the money she received for the child support, and I've realized that Matilda's not controlling because she's worried I might leave her like Dad. Instead, it's also about the financial freedom that Matilda has because of me now. Matilda goes on and on saying loathsome things about Emily and just admitting her awful actions that made our lives absolutely wretched. She admitted that she had posted that video with my number in the description so I could understand her worth in my life and get chided by strangers for treating her so badly. Matilda did this to strip Emily and me of happiness of a married life, and Emily comes out the room at this point because I simply lied to Matilda that Emily has left me. I wanted to hit Matilda's nerve to get her to admit to her crimes. This was Susan's idea. Completely Susan's idea. I asked Emily to keep the door ajar and just record everything. So, I had to take a stand for Emily and myself. This time, I did not kick Matilda out of the house. I kicked her out of my life. The company Emily and I work at has branches in several states in the United States, so we applied for a transfer and we got it. Got a transfer straight to the company's branch in California, which, by the way, is miles and miles away from Matilda. I did not give my address to her and severed all ties. I threatened that if she does anything repulsive again, I will post the video online. I also sent a legal notice with the help of Susan, saying that if Matilda tries to find us, she'll be faced with charges of defamation that we did not file earlier, respecting her position as my biological mother. Update number 4. This is the final update. Hey guys, just a short one. Emily and I have been living together ever since we came to California, and I'm in contact with my dad and his family. Susan's become a good friend of mine, and a few days ago, a video surfaced on the interwebs. And oh boy, it went pretty viral. It was the video that Emily had recorded. It was not exactly me who posted the video, it was Emily. She said she wanted to post the video and delete it after a few days just to avenge all the happy days we could have and happy memories that we could have made, but simply could not. Simply because of Matilda. It was meant to be a lesson for her since Emily blurred the face of both the speakers and listeners in the video. But if Matilda goes into the comment section, she'll find so many people showing disgust of what she had done to herself and her family because of her abusive, controlling behavior. A few days ago, Matilda posted on Facebook a picture with a man. His face was not familiar, as he was definitely not Dad. Perhaps she's found someone new to control, I don't know. I just wish she does not destroy his life and hers all over again. After everything, I'm at peace that Matilda's healthy, even if she failed at being a good mother to me and a wife to Dad. Emily and I have decided to go and see Dad, Aunt Anna and Susan, and we will then go to spend our honeymoon, which we kept on pause because of, well, you know why, and it's going to be in Paris. If anything, I could learn from this experience to stay away from the toxic people, even if they're members of your own family.
Well, I do think it's a good thing that viral video went around about Matilda basically admitting to everything that she's done, but we did find out from OP, who basically cut all contact, that Matilda has found another man who she's going to manipulate and use her narcissism against. But a lot of the comments were very interesting on this one. Usually, you have a small amount of people, maybe 10-20% of the comments, that feel a little bit bad for the evil people in the story. However, nobody was feeling any sort of sympathy for Matilda, and they were absolutely ripping her to pieces. I want to know, do you guys even have the littlest shred of forgiveness for the way Matilda acted? Drop your comments down below, but it's safe to say these commenters in the original post had about 0%. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. My name's Mr. Reddito. I do daily videos, so if you want more content, Subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys tomorrow. And remember, it's cool to be kind. See ya.